I can see attendees starting to join. Hello, participants. Welcome back. If it's your first time, I hope you enjoy. I know you will enjoy this conversation with Nicole. Hi, Nicole.
Hello.
Are you in Atlanta
I
area?
am back. So I am back in Georgia. We just returned from our trip abroad. So playing catch up, putting out fires, playing whack-a-mole, doing all the things.
Oh, where did you go?
We went to Barcelona and then we did a 7-day cruise, France, Italy, and around France, Italy, and Spain.
Oh my gosh, a 7-day cruise. That is
Yes.
fantastic.
Yeah. It was
And
so nice.
were you able to disconnect, or did you have to bring your work with you? That's always the
No, I was actually bragging on social media that out of the 10 days we were there, we probably well, JW actually opened the laptop more than me. I probably opened it for about 30 minutes. I couldn't get it to connect on the ship's internet, so I just didn't even bother doing anything. But Jay, he worked for about an hour. So about 90 minutes to an hour between the two of us
per
of
day.
work. No,
Yeah.
period.
Period. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I That's great. I was thinking, maybe an hour or two a day, because that's about the
hmm
best I could do whenever I
Uh-huh.
took a vacation as a firm
hmm
owner.
Yeah.
I would go in and triage those emails, but that is fantastic. Wow.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it was because mainly too, I couldn't get the internet to work. So it was like, enjoy yourself. So I did.
that's great. Yeah, I've heard that cruises are great for accountants because the internet is not good, and so you really have no
That is so
choice,
true, right? You have
right?
no choice but to enjoy yourself. Yes, that's exactly
Uh,
what happened.
okay, I'm going to use that to pitch my wife on us going on a cruise. Is the fact that Blake will actually disconnect
Right.
because he won't have adequate internet. So even if he brings his laptop, it won't help.
Got it. Yep.
Well, welcome everyone. Um, Appreciate you joining us today. We're going to get started in just a moment, just a minute at the top of the hour, and we'll be talking about. Well, I think there is a tie-in to Nicole's vacation to this whole topic of building a firm, because if it's just you, it can be really hard to take a vacation.
Yes.
But if you got a good team, it can be very easy to take a vacation. But building up to that point can
It's a
take a
lot of
long
work.
time, a lot of
Yes, a
work.
lot of work, a lot
Yeah.
of time. Yes.
All right. Well, let's kick things off, shall we?
Yes.
Welcome to Grow and Scale, a series by Financial Sense. I am your host, Blake Oliver, joined today by Nicole Davis. Hi, Nicole.
Hello.
We're talking. Sorry, I forgot to turn on Do Not Disturb on my computer, and now Siri is trying to talk to me through my headset. It's very distracting. I'm going to remember not to do that in the future. Today, we are talking about how solo firm owners can gradually transition into team-based work, build their team, and delegate work so they can focus on more strategic work, and maybe even take a really nice cruise in Europe, like Nicole just did. She's back from that, very rested. So yeah, I'm eager to talk to you today, Nicole, about how you went from one to many in your firm.
Yes, thank you, Blake, for hosting today's webinar, and thanks to Financial Sense for inviting me to be on.
So give us the current state of
Yes.
Butler-Davis Tax and
Okay.
Accounting. That's your firm.
Yes.
Where are you at today?
So today we have a team of about 14. Most are actually in-house. They're local to us. We have 2 offshore and 1 remote due to military orders. We primarily serve independent pharmacies, construction companies, and service-based businesses. And we do accounting, tax, payroll, and financial planning.
And I think the last time I saw you in person, you had recently acquired a payroll service provider.
Yes, yes. We acquired a payroll company last tax season, so in February of 2022, and that has worked out extremely well so far.
Oh, that's great to hear. So yeah, you're doing it all: tax, accounting, payroll,
Yes,
really the full scope of what businesses
yes,
need.
yes.
Um, but it wasn't always, this many people. What did you say? Did you say
No,
14?
yes, 14.
It started with just you, like most firms.
Yes.
So how long did it take you to get from 1 to 14?
Oh, wow. I would say most of the growth happened over the last 3 to 4 years. So, and the most happened when we acquired the payroll company because we actually acquired 5 additional team members. So it it took a little bit of time to get from one person with me just being me to where we are now. I would say I was solo for maybe a good 8 to 9 months before I hired my first admin. So that was my first hire. And then after that, we hired our first accountant, and then my partner slash husband came aboard. So it was us for a little while before we started ramping up hiring.
And for those who have joined us live, I would love to hear your stories.
Mhm.
If you're not one person, if you have employees, I would love to hear your story about your first hire.
Mhm.
Like what was that like for you? Did it work out? Did it not work out? I have my own story. I'd love to hear, Nicole, like what it was like for you going
Yeah.
from just doing it yourself to your first hire. How did you make that leap? Was it terrifying? Was it exciting? Was it
It was
how'd it go?
exciting. It was definitely exciting because, again, I knew early on that I wanted to hire someone rather quickly, so I needed to put my finances in order to do that, and I needed to budget for it. So my first hire was an administrative professional. I needed someone to help me with scheduling the client appointments, onboarding clients as far as bringing in storing their doing document management. I needed someone to have that client communication to where I wasn't always on the phone with clients. So it really boiled down to me figuring out the things that I didn't necessarily need to do or should be doing, and then hiring someone to take care of those tasks.
Mm. So administrative help.
Mhm,
Um, like how did you figure out what to give them, what to keep for
mhm.
yourself? I mean, training somebody can take a lot of time. And
It
were
does.
you for me, by the time I hired somebody, I was like
Mhm.
maxed out. So how did you deal with that? Training time, making time for that.
So as far as training, so my first hire was definitely someone I knew and someone I trusted. So because I hired someone I knew and trusted, it was easier for me to train them because I knew what their skill set was already. I knew what areas they needed to improve on. So for me, I definitely started delegating those tasks that I knew they could handle without a lot of hand-holding. That was the first big check that we did. And then eventually I started releasing other tasks, and the training just involved me sitting down, taking the time to sit down and just go over what the outcome looked like. And so I started delegating the outcome and not the process. But even then, you have to kind of walk through the process sometimes. So it took some time to train them on those bigger tasks or those tasks that were a lot more complex.
Mhm.
And that just involved taking the time to do it. So I had something like office hours, or assign a task, and then I would have them go do the task, offer feedback, and then if they had any questions, I encouraged first a resource that I use called 3 Me, take time to figure out the answer with the resources available to you. And then if you couldn't figure it out, come back to me, we'll sit down, relook at where your bottleneck is, where you're having issues moving forward in the task, and then they'll go back and tackle it again. So again, it just takes the owner has to take time to sit down, offer the training, do the training, and then allow the person to go out and complete the task.
So what were some examples of
Mhm.
tasks that were effectively delegated by you to your admin?
So a few tasks that I delegated immediately was like answering the phone. I don't really like talking on the phone. So definitely I wanted someone to answer the phone, take messages, not transfer them, and then I could follow up later with the client, schedule appointment, because back then we had a scheduling app, but a lot of client called in, a lot of prospects called in to set an appointment. Social media, I delegated that pretty much right off the bat. What else do we delegate early on? We delegated all of the document management, definitely following up with clients as far as requests that we sent out. We delegated creating proposals. So I taught my admin
Mm.
how to create proposals. So once we closed a new client, she could send a proposal out within one business day versus waiting on me because I am always the bottleneck in my firm. So I knew early on that I needed to bring in someone to keep me from being the bottleneck in a lot of the processes and tasks we had.
Yeah, that's great. So you could just basically make notes when you're talking with a client and they're ready to sign up, and you just send that to your admin and then they go make the proposal for you.
Exactly, yes. So she also helped with data entry, maintaining our CRM, research. So a lot of people don't really use their, I guess, their help to research some things. So I definitely leaned on her for a lot of the research, especially with tax law. If I had a question that I didn't have time to go and dig into the law, I tell her this is what I needed to find out. I gave her the resource to go look for, and then she would find it, report back to me on what she found, and then I could make decisions or use my professional judgment from there. What else did we delegate early on?
So,
But those
well,
are the
so
main things we
yeah.
delegated.
So see, I didn't do what you did. I think I probably would have been more successful if I'd hired an admin.
Uh-huh.
I hired a bookkeeper, another
Okay.
bookkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
And I was primarily doing freelance bookkeeping work. You know, I had more clients than I could handle. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna hire a bookkeeper to help me do these monthly reconciliations, right? And then I'll
Right.
continue to be the point of contact. So I
Ah,
kind of did it the other way. You put this person in between you and the client in a lot of
yes.
ways
Yes.
to help with that. I put this person in the back office,
Mm.
and it didn't. Well, it's kind of a funny story. So, do you mind if I
Sure,
tell you
yeah, go
my?
ahead.
Okay, so I found this. I didn't have a network. I was in Los Angeles, and I was just this freelance bookkeeper. I didn't have a lot of like people I knew to hire, so I used a temp agency,
Mm-hmm.
and they connected me with a few people. I interviewed some on the phone, and there was this one woman who was great. She was an experienced bookkeeper. She was so knowledgeable, probably, had more experience than I did at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I drove out to the office where I was going to actually hire her and meet her in person, because that's how we did things back then, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I met her, I signed the paperwork, and I was like dancing as I was going down the hallway. And I went back to my car in the parking garage, and I pulled out, and I was, had the music going. I'm like, I'm building a business. And I immediately backed into a pole in the parking lot.
Oh no. Okay.
Caused $1,000 of damage to my car.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Because I was so excited about it. Right.
Right.
And
Right.
I think the lesson that I learned, took away from that, was like, even when your business is growing and you're excited, you can't move too fast. Right. If
That
you
is
move
true.
too fast, you'll break things and make mistakes. So
That is true. No, that is absolutely true. Because even now, I had to tell myself to slow down. Because again, if you do move too fast and you don't think about the different pieces or how one thing may affect something else, then yeah, it's gonna mess something else up or break something.
So let's talk about that, breaking things when you
Yeah.
hire people.
Yes.
Um, what's the biggest challenge that you have faced in hiring, especially when you're small, like when you were
Mm-hmm.
just building that nucleus of your firm?
I would say the biggest challenge I had early on was hiring the right person for the right seat. Like I went through so many new hires, and it took me a long time to hire slow, fire fast. I would hire slow, fire slower. So, and that hurt my business in a lot of ways because I was holding on to people that weren't, I guess they weren't progressing the firm's goals forward. So for me, definitely figuring out, okay, who do I need to hire? Why do I need to hire them? What are they going to do on a day-to-day basis that's going to contribute to pushing the firm forward? Took me a rather long time to figure out. I would say probably 4 or 5 years before I finally was like, okay, let me go find something that can help me do better at this. So I read the book, Who is the A Method for Hiring, and it pretty much has a really great framework on the hiring process and hiring those A players so that you could plug them into your processes or firm.
So how long do you give somebody to figure things out before you let them go? That's,
Ah,
fire fast, right? How fast do you
yes. So
fire?
now in our hiring process, we let everyone, candidates know early on during the interview phase that, hey, if this is when they've gotten to the point to where we want to make them an offer, right? So we're like, hey, you have 2 weeks to pass our online training course. So we have a very thorough training course that we license from another CPA firm out of Florida. So we say, hey, you have 2 weeks to pass this course. So it's like a QBO training course. It's it teaches ACS payroll, which is the software we use. It teaches how to use UltraTax and do taxes. So it's a very thorough training course. And it's pretty much designed to take someone who has very little to some experience and then bring them up to speed. Because in the QBO course, for instance, it teaches them how to use QBO and also how to do 12 months of bookkeeping in 2 weeks. So we're
Wow.
like, hey, you have 2 weeks to pass this course because it has an outline on where the person should be on a daily basis for us the course. If you don't pass it, you're going to lose your job. So that's pretty much how we fire fast now, because we have a system in place that allows us to assess their performance and if they're going to make it or not.
So you have 2 weeks to
Mhm.
figure things out to pass this
Mhm.
course, and if you
Yep.
can't pass it,
Yes.
you're done.
You're done. And
Yeah.
but the thing here's one thing that I think a lot of firms don't do. When they hire someone, they immediately plug them into client work, right? We don't do that. We say you have 2 weeks. All you have to do for these 2 weeks is this course. So we
Mhm.
don't let them touch any clients. They don't do any client work. They don't have any communication with any clients because we want them to be successful in their role, but we can't allow them to do that if they're doing client work and also trying to pass this course, because we are very strict on the timeline of passing the course.
Yep. Well, and you definitely don't want somebody who's not going to work out
Yes.
introduced to clients and then have to
Yes.
explain next month,
Right.
oh,
Exactly.
which
They're not here anymore. We fired them.
yeah, to be honest, it's happened to all of us, I think, at any
Yeah.
firm, right? Where that you have to have that awkward conversation. So
Mhm.
that's a really great tip, is you just sort of absorb the cost of that training as their
Yes.
trial period.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. We got some comments coming in from
Okay.
our live attendees. The name of the book that you just mentioned, Nicole, can you say that again?
Yes, it's called Who? The A Method for Hiring by Jeff Smart. That's GEOFF.
FF.
Yes.
And Randy Street.
And Randy Street. Yes.
Awesome. And then you mentioned a test that you have
Yes.
licensed. Is that something that other firms can get?
Yes, it is. So it is a training course. Again, it's developed by a CPA firm out of Florida. So it's a rather large firm, and they do a lot of hiring. So I would say if you're planning to do a lot of hiring, it's a great investment. If you're not, then it can be costly to invest in the learning management system. So I would say definitely something to look into if you're looking to train someone. And they have very specific courses. So they have QBO, they have ACS, which is Thomson Reuters, they have UltraTax. I think they just added a course for cert. Like, they're constantly updating the materials, adding new courses, but it's a really great learning management system.
Yeah. So that's great. Let's say you've gotten a little larger, you've got some more employees, and now you're going to scale up bigger. It makes sense to invest in that. But when you're just one person, bringing it back to that one person, going back to what you said, it sounds like getting those admin hires first is the way to go.
Yes. Yes, I think a lot of times firm owners or solo practitioners don't know how much time they're spending doing administrative work. And so I would say take a little time to sit down and see, like, how much of the work you're doing on a daily basis is administrative. And if it's more than 10%, then you probably want to look at adding an admin professional to kind of take some of those things off your plate.
How did you know when you were ready to hire? You said it took 8 to 10 months. Did you know when you started your firm that you wanted to grow? Okay.
I did. I knew immediately that I didn't want to be the end all be all in my firm. I definitely wanted to scale and scale quickly, and I needed to figure out the best way to do that.
Did you know how big you wanted to get, or was it just, I want to have a firm?
Yes, I wanted to have a firm. So it goes back to, I think you mentioned it in several places, like being a business owner versus being someone that is in your business, but you're doing all of the work, right? I wanted to be that business owner. I wanted it to be an investment for me, where initially, yes, I put in the legwork to build it to where it is today. That's because I'm looking to build something that doesn't require me to run it on a day-to-day basis.
A reminder to our participants, our attendees, that you're welcome to ask questions. If you're in Zoom with us, use the Q&A. Nicole is a wealth of knowledge now about hiring. now that she's gotten to where she's at. So do take advantage of that. I'm monitoring the chat here. We're also on LinkedIn streaming, on YouTube. You can put your comments in there, and I believe I will see them all as well. So feel free to ask questions. Great to have you all with us. Oh, and a reminder that you can earn CPE credit for listening to this episode, this live stream. We put these episodes on the Earmark app about a week after we broadcast them. And so you can earn NASBA approved CPE for joining us today or watching this after the fact. Just download the Earmark app from the App Store and find the Grow and Scale channel by Financial Sense on the app. And thanks again to Financial Sense for sponsoring this, making this possible, bringing us together here today. Let's talk a little bit about technology and practice management software, because that's what Financial Sense does. Nicole, when did you invest in a workflow management solution?
Let's see. So I started my firm full-time in 2014. I didn't invest in a workflow management. Well, I take that back. No, I immediately started using something called Teamwork, which is a task management checklist. And we use a lot of that initially to manage the client work, to manage information sharing between the client and our office. Then eventually we graduated to a practice management software where it houses, or it has a lot more features and benefits than the disparate systems that we were using at the time. So we use a system called, go ahead.
So I was curious, when did you know, like as a solo practitioner, you might not need or feel like you need task or project management software for your firm. Like, how do you know when it's time to put that in place? Like, where were you at?
So for me, I was probably, great story. So again, we were using the Teamwork software. So we also do taxes. And one of my pet peeves is when a client asks me, and this is probably something that a lot of firm owners, especially the ones that do taxes, can relate to. A client asks, what's the status of my tax return? And so I was constantly getting those questions early on, right? And it just irked me to no end. So I was like, you know what? I need a way for them to track and check their status without involving me, right? And so we went out and found a solution for that. And then in the solution, we also gained so many other benefits and features that we were able to replace so many of those other apps we were paying for separately within this one solution. So that is how I determined. I had a problem, and it was a client communication problem. And so I found a solution for that first. And that's why we introduced the workflow management, practice management software.
So then the benefit of having that is you can now delegate client work.
Yes.
So we talked about how you hired an admin to start, and you were still doing the client work.
Yes.
At what point did you start hiring people to do the client work?
You know what I did? So as most accountants, we like the technical work, right? We like working in our little silos, doing the client work. And I didn't know that I necessarily needed an additional accountant until someone reached out to me directly. So then I was like, hey, you know what? I probably need to hire someone to sort of take some of this workload off of me, because then I was running into capacity issues, right? It was like we wanted to bring on new clients. I didn't have capacity to do so. I was happy working on my set of clients that I had. So one, it was capacity, looking at my capacity, determining, okay, if I want to grow and scale, I need to bring on help. Also, I wanted to find a better work-life balance. At the time, I had really small, I still have small kids, but they were a lot younger back then. And then realizing that I can't work all day, 5 days a week, and some Saturdays, if I didn't bring in additional help. Also, operational bottlenecks. Again, I am usually the bottleneck in my firm. I still am in a lot of ways. And so we needed someone, again, to be that middle person between our offshore team, our remote person, clients, vendors, and that required hiring someone to kind of manage those tasks without having to always bring me in a loop. So it was a number of different reasons that made me decide to hire additional help. Also, if none of those fit your current situation, You may want to hire because you need someone to specialize in something. For instance, like you may need to hire someone that if you're in a specific a niche and you don't have the required skill set to service that niche, you can bring someone in to service that niche for you. Also, if you want to add a different service line, like for us, payroll. Most accountants hate payroll. I hated payroll, but I bought a payroll company because the talent with the company came with the acquisition. So today I have not touched any payrolls that we have acquired. My team handles all of that. Also, if you're solo and if you have physical or mental health issues, then you may want to think about hiring someone so that you can take a step back and take care of yourself.
Take that vacation we were talking about before we got
Or take a
started.
vacation.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if everyone heard that, but I want you to reiterate, Nicole, what was the vacation you just took? Because it sounds amazing. And it's something you could only do if you'd actually delegated the work in your
Yes.
firm. Where'd you
Yes.
go?
So we just returned from Barcelona. We took a 10-day vacation. So we flew into Barcelona. Then we were there for a few days before we took a 7-day cruise around Italy, France, and Spain. And I was telling Blake that he asked, did we do any work? I said, yeah, we sort of did. So I opened my laptop for maybe half an hour, but I couldn't get it to work on the ship. So I closed it, didn't open it again. My husband, he opened his. He probably worked about an hour to 90 minutes because he was doing payroll for all the companies. So that's the main reason he took his laptop to do the work. But other than that, we probably spent a couple of hours during the whole trip doing any type of work. And our team, I would say they held the office down for us while we were away.
That's fantastic. And that's because you have put yourself in the role of a business owner.
Yes.
And not a service provider.
Yes.
And you have delegated the really critical client work.
Exactly.
So and I think in my experience talking with firm owners, my fellow CPAs, that's probably the biggest challenge that we have is we love doing the work. And so it can be really hard to let go of it, especially if we don't feel like it's going to be 100%.
Yes.
I do it perfectly. If I delegate it, maybe it's not perfect. That's hard. How, and you're a CPA, Nicole, like, how did you get over that? How did you learn to delegate?
So I would say, again, it's really hard to give up control because we're technicians through and through. And also there's something that called delayed delegation. I think a lot of us also suffer from that, in that there's a task that you shouldn't be doing or that you can delegate to someone else to do. Even if you don't hire anyone, you can hire a VA to handle this task, but you don't actually delegate it until it's at the deadline or it's too late. So for me, I would say if you have an issue with those, and those are things that I definitely struggle with early on. And even now I struggle a lot with delayed delegation still now. But one of the things you can do to kind of get over that fear of letting go and trusting others to handle those important tasks is to start small and build trust for you. So like give them a small task, delegate the outcome of what the task looks like when they complete it, and then get them autonomy to actually go out and do the task. And then you can come back, review it, offer feedback if it's not done correctly or if there were some hiccups along the way. So definitely start small, build that trust, hire the right people for the right seats. So I cannot say that enough. You want to make sure that the person you're hiring, that they're capable of doing the job that you intend them to do. Do the instruction tango. So what the instruction tango is, you explain to someone what you would like completed or what you would like done, and then you say, hey, repeat to me what you heard. That saves so much time because you don't realize how often that you say something and then you send them off to actually complete the task and they do something totally different than what you said. I was like, I know my instructions were pretty clear. Like I wasn't talking a foreign language. So I wasn't. So for us, it's always, okay, this is what I need done. Now explain back to me how you heard what I need done. And that way you can kind of close some of those gaps early on as far as misunderstandings, they can get more clarity on the task, and then you can have that training do feedback loop after that.
I love that. The tango.
The
What did you
instruction tango,
the
yes.
instruction tango? I'm
Yeah.
gonna start. That's gonna make me remember it. I mean, I'm a horrible dancer, Nicole, but I feel like I can do the instruction tango.
Yes, definitely.
We got a question here on
Okay.
LinkedIn
Okay.
from this person says, I am a Big Four manager and
Okay.
planning to open my own CPA firm. I have
Congrats.
audit. Yes, congratulations. It's a big leap, right?
Mhm.
I have audit experience, but no tax experience. Another option for me is to work for a private firm and earn around 200K, but I am inclined toward my own CPA firm. What do you suggest?
Oh, you putting your whole career in my
No
Okay,
pressure,
so
Nicole.
I know, right? No pressure.
Yeah,
Let's see. What do okay, if I'm being honest, Mr. Big Four manager, I don't know if it's a guy or
Big
girl.
Four.
Yeah,
We don't know.
so Big Four manager, if I'm being honest, I would say when I started, I had no tax experience. My background is in accounting only. So I did taxes for family and friends to build up that skill set initially. So I would say start there. Like ask your friends and your family members, hey, can I do your tax return next season? Or if you have any that are on extension now, ask them, can you do their returns now? So you can start getting in the rhythm of what it feels like to be in tax season, to do tax returns, to understand the forms you're going to complete. Also CPE. So like you said, you don't have to have a lot of experience. You just got to have the right experience, right? So CPE, that teaches you how to complete a 1040, they teach you the tax laws, like buck up on that as much as possible. Also, trainings. There are some software companies, tech software companies that will train you on the software, but they also have technical training that you can look into. So I would say kind of do a combination of those things, and then I think you will do absolutely amazing as your own firm owner.
That's great. Great tips. I love the idea of not having it be a cutoff, that you can find out what it's like to own a firm on the
Yes.
side.
Yes.
And that's so important because it might not be what you imagined. And the last thing you want is to quit your job and then
Yes.
realize, oh, I made a huge
You
mistake.
don't want to do this, right?
No. And you don't have to, luckily,
No.
right? You can grow and scale slowly until it's
Yes.
enough on the side to do your own thing. And
Exactly.
and and maybe you realize that, you prefer being an employee, a staff, or a manager at a firm,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very different being the owner, like you pointed out,
It's
Nicole.
very different.
Very different. What do you spend most of your time on now that you've scaled up?
Training, offering feedback. Um, I would say big picture things. So I spent a lot of time doing strategic planning, big picture, determining what vendors we're going to work with, determining how to improve processes. Like that's what my background is in corporate. I did accounting, but most of it was around process improvement. So,
Mm.
and just trying to figure out ways to do things better in my firm and also make it a better workplace for our team.
Yeah, and that's very different than the kind of work that you would do as a service provider, as a professional. So you have to find out, do you do you enjoy that, setting up those
Exactly.
processes? Well, you already
Exactly.
knew because you were doing that in your
Mm-hmm.
corporate life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is, yes.
And now that we're not in offices really anymore, do you have an office that your
I
team
do
goes
have an
to?
office. We just moved actually to a bigger office. So
Oh.
yes.
And is the whole team in the office, or are they remote as well?
So about 11 are in the office and the three remaining are remote. So we have two
Got it.
offshore and
Two
then one
offshore.
that is in another state. Yes.
So you have to have really good processes
Mm-hmm.
anyway, even though you have an office, because you've got that offshore team.
Exactly. And I would say too, that's one of the things you want to consider before you move towards building a team model is get your house in order. So, growing up, I'm not sure if you can relate to this story or if anyone can, but my mom would never let us have company or friends over if our house was in disarray. Like she was like, you got to
Oh
clean up
yeah,
first, right?
absolutely.
And this can
Yep.
be applied to firms in that you want to make sure that you have the processes, the checklist in place so that you can train others on it. Because you don't want to bring someone into your mess or into your disarray and then try to figure things out. And you'll be wasting money then and time because unless you're going to hire them to do those things for you, to create those processes and checklists. But it's better to already have those things in place before you hire your first person.
And my personal recommendation, tell me if you agree with this or not, Nicole, but like I'm a tech nerd, so I just love playing with apps, even if I don't necessarily need them yet. And so I set up workflow software for myself when I was solo. And it gave me comfort that I knew that I was doing the work every month, that I wasn't going to miss deadlines.
Yes.
I'm super forgetful, which is not a good thing to pair with being an accountant. So to make sure I process payroll on time, I had to have multiple reminders.
Yes. I totally agree with that. So again,
Yeah.
too, we were using a teamwork checklist, because again, there are so many different tasks, and some tasks are varied by client, that
Yeah.
if we didn't have something that says, hey, do this, and or take care of this task by this date, then so many things will fall through the cracks. And then, you know, when those things fall through the cracks, you have very unhappy clients, and you can't deliver upon what they're paying you for.
We had a question from Moshi on LinkedIn. What's the best practice to create procedures and checklists and SOPs? My favorite best practice is to actually build that out in your workflow software.
Yes.
So find software that will let you add notes to a task, so that when you do the task and it recurs again, you have the same notes there.
Exactly.
And you remember how to do it. Nicole, any tips for creating that documentation?
Yeah, so I would say every time, so generally there's always something you have to do every day. So every time you're about to perform a task, I would say do something very similar. There's software that will actually record you doing the tasks, such as scribehow.com. I think that's the website, scribehow.com. There's also Loom. You can create Loom videos, and then you can transcribe your voice over the instructions, or you can talk through it as you're actually doing the video. So I would say start with the current tasks you're doing and build out processes for those first. Like, you don't have to go out or create a list of tasks that you think you're going to eventually create processes for. I mean, you can just do it on a daily basis as you're completing the work that you're doing.
That's my favorite way to do it, is as I'm working, I have the process, the task, whatever you call it, the project up on another screen, and I am filling in the missing documentation as I go.
Right.
Making a Loom video, make a scribe. It takes extra time, and it might take twice as long to do the process, but once you've documented it
initially, yes.
Yeah, it's a big investment in time.
And it's funny that it's a big investment of time initially, but it saves so much more time on the back end. So like, and I think we accountants, we fall into that trap of, well, it's only gonna take me 5 minutes to do it. And then you're doing this 5 minutes every day, when you could have done it once, trained someone how to do it, and then delegated it to them. Now you've gained whatever time back there it was taking you just 5 minutes a day to do, or 10 minutes, or however long it was taking you to do it.
So if you're listening and you don't have workflow software yet, check out Financial Sense, our sponsor of this series. It's super easy to use. You can onboard yourself, your team really quickly, and you can start documenting the work that you're doing now, so that as you grow and scale, you've got it there and you're saving that time in the future. You're taking care of your future self when you do that.
Yes.
So you can take the vacation.
Yes. So I'm gonna so at Engage this year, I'm not sure how many people attended Engage, but I did a session with Laura Lynn and Jason Statz on scaling your firm through video. And Jason Statz made a very important or very significant statement. He was like, he underestimated the laziness of his future self, right? So a lot of time we put things off thinking we'll take care of it later. And generally, our future self is rather lazy. That person's not going to take care of it. So if you have the means and times to take care of it now, like, dedicate that time to do it now and not later. So definitely put those processes, checklists in place while it's top of mind.
And I think we need to shift our mindset as accountants when we think about this time. It's not an expense, it's an investment. It's a capital investment in your future firm. But yet we put it down on timesheets and we say, oh, I lost this time. This was non-billable time. But it's really a capital investment in your future vacation self. Yourself in Barcelona.
It has gains unimaginable. Yes.
And we've got some conversations going on in the chat.
Okay.
I just want to check in on our attendees
Okay.
here. Jen said, I would add to that. Oh, this is in regards to the Big Four manager who wants to start a firm. So Jen says, you can specialize in audit. My firm doesn't do audits and looks to other firms to fill that need for our nonprofit clients. So maybe that's the way to go is, hey, you currently specialize in audit now as a Big Four manager. You don't necessarily need to go and learn a whole new specialization doing tax work, right? Just because a lot of small firms do tax doesn't mean you have to.
Right.
You could network with other tax firms that don't do audits and take on the smaller audit work to get started.
That would be considered a niche among small firms too, because a lot of small firms don't touch audit or do any type of assurance services.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to set yourself apart from the other smaller firms.
Might be a good idea too, because I've been reading about how a lot of these regional audit firms can't find enough staff and are losing work and are not able to keep up with deadlines. So you know, if you specialize in, say, an area where you can be more efficient, you're using technology, you've got, say, you know, if you're Big Four, you've been using offshore staff your whole career at this point, so you know how to do that, right? You could have an advantage against those regional firms that may still be doing everything locally. Kathleen said, hire an offshore employee. You will spend 3 days on making procedure videos to save your own life. Yeah, I guess you have to make the procedure videos.
You do. I
You
mean,
have to if you're going to hire offshore.
Yes, you absolutely have to have a video library or very detailed SOPs in place before you consider hiring an offshore person. Because again, it goes back to having your house in order. You don't want to bring anyone in that you can't plug them directly into your system and they can do the work.
And there's lots of solutions out there for making these videos. It takes a while to get comfortable doing it. And at first you're going to feel like an idiot. And I'm on camera almost every day, but I'll tell you, when I started doing this years ago, I felt very awkward.
I know, it is awkward. Yeah. Initially, it is awkward to you, but once you start getting into the rhythm of doing it more and more, and then it's usually very easy. You can click Loom in your browser, create the video really quick, send a link to your team or attach it to the task, and you're done.
And, you know, you can turn off the video if you don't like it. You know, you don't want to be on video. You can just do the audio. And they're making it really easy now with AI tools to just cut out the awkward silences. So if you don't know what to do next, you just wait and you think for a few seconds, and the technology will cut that out and make you sound like you know what you're doing.
Like it's a steady stream. Yep.
So I love the video thing. Give that a try. You can do it for free to start. So we had some more questions come in about that course. Did you actually mention the name of the course?
I didn't. It's called the Learning Management course. It's owned by Howard CPAs based out of, I think it's Lake Mary, Florida. So it's Howard CPAs based out of Lake Mary, Florida.
And the course is called
Learning Management System. That's what it's
just called, Learning Management System. Okay, I'm just going to put that in as an answer for our attendees. You can trace it down if you like. Okay. Do all of your employees go through the QBO and LMS training, or is it just the accountants?
No, all of them. So I would say all of them that we've started hiring over the last 18 months. So before we didn't have it, we implemented it about 18 months ago. So anyone that we hired that has a technical, I would say the ones that have the technical jobs or technical roles, they have to go through it.
Got it. Do you have any advice for a new CPA firm to find tax or bookkeeping clients other than family or friends?
Oh, yes. So listen, the hiring talent, finding skilled talent is quite difficult these days because, again, there are so many options out there for candidates. So I would say, remember that the hiring process is a two-way interview. You're interviewing them, but they're also interviewing you as well. So you want to put your best foot forward. So for us, we're not relying on the skilled talent that's currently in the marketplace. We're actually creating our own pipeline. You know, there's a pipeline shortage. Well, you can create your own pipeline, and that's what we're doing by using the WHO method, the A method for hiring. We have our training system in place so that we can bring someone that does not have the experience or they haven't worked in public accounting or in a firm very long. So we're able to train them up and show them how to do the work and the way we want to do the work. So I would say start with a scorecard. So in the book, if you read the book, it's going to tell you to start with a scorecard. And the scorecard is basically a document that outlines the role you're hiring for. It has a mission statement, and it lists the competencies of the role. It lists the outcomes for the role. And it's going to be different every time you hire somebody, because again, you're looking for a very specific person for this role. So you don't want to hire the generalist. I think a lot of times we get caught up trying to hire the generalist and not the specialist. And that's where people have the issue. So with the
Mm-hmm.
specialist, you can pretty much pinpoint if a person that you're interviewing is going to be a good fit or not. And with this method, it takes you through a 4-phase interview process. So it's the screening interview, it's the who interview, the focus interview, and then the reference interview. So those are the 4 interviews, and you have to go through every single interview. I made that mistake of not going through every single interview, and I got burnt really bad. So you definitely want to follow the method to the T. Use the scorecard. Tap into your network for referrals. So it doesn't have to be family and friends, but we actually found a great hire. It was a recent college graduate. When I sent an email out to my list of clients, to the local businesses in the area, I sent it to a few vendors, and I say, hey, we're looking for this role. I explained it specifically what the role was for, who we're looking to hire. And then I offered an incentive if they send us anyone that fit, that were a fit for the role. And so I got so many people that responded that say, hey, I know someone, I know someone. And I was like, okay, great, send me their resumes. So I would say, don't underestimate the power of your current network. A lot of times job boards can give you a lot of unwanted candidates.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to, like I said, be very specific in what you're hiring for, what the role looks like, if it's done successfully, and then go from there.
So, how do you create a culture of accountability as you
Ah,
grow? How do you make sure that people are getting the things done, as you scale?
mm-hmm.
You've got a lot of people now. You can't talk to all of them every day. How do you do
No.
that?
Let's see. So how do I create a culture of accountability? You have to be extra mean, Blake, like extra mean, okay?
It's hard to
No.
imagine, Nicole. I'm trying to picture you, in an employee review.
So, talk to my employees. They will tell you some stories, okay?
Okay.
But no, seriously. So actually, I have this acronym I use. It's called TREAD. So again, I'm always saying delegate the outcome. But in TREAD, it's task, review, empower, accountability, and then confidence, develop confidence. So for me, the task is first, you got to clearly define what the task is, explain it to whoever's been assigned the task.
And use the tango,
Yes, right.
the
Definitely want to
tango
use
method.
your instruction tango. Yes, review. That's the training portion of it. You want to review the processes with them. You want to review any trainings available to them. You want to offer any feedback. Allow them to have clarity on what exactly they're going to be completing or the task that they're being delegated. Empower them. That means trust them to actually complete the task. Don't micromanage. I quit my first job because I had a micromanager.
Yeah.
So you don't want to micromanage the process. You want to delegate the outcome, give them, hey, this is how the process looks, but hey, I'm open to improvements to that process as they're carrying out the task. Hold them accountable. That's where the accountability comes into play. You have to hold them accountable. If you give them a task and you give them very clear instructions, you did the instruction tango, and if they perform the task to completion and accurately, then you want to, develop that confidence by rewarding them. You want to have a positive feedback system. If they don't, then you have to have some mechanism in place or some consequences that say, hey, And the consequences don't have to be harsh. That's the thing. So don't think consequence means you have to write them up or lash them. Like initially, you just want to have a conversation to say, hey, tell me what went wrong, what went right, how, and then offer feedback so that when they try to tackle it again, that they're more successful. So yeah, we use TREAD: task, review, empower, accountability, and develop their confidence.
I love that. Wow, that's like a real system for creating accountability.
Yeah.
I need to up my accountability game at my company because it's definitely not that systematic.
Mm.
But that's because you've got that process driven background. But do you mind,
Yes.
Nicole? I know that we've talked about this a long time ago where
Yeah.
you started in corporate life,
Hmm.
but I would just love to, like,
Sure.
how did you get this process experience? Where were you?
Oh, let's see. So I would say I got it at my very first internship out of college. It was with an oil and gas company based in Oklahoma. And so, during internship, some internships, they don't give you real work. They can give you all the grunt work to do. Well, this
Yeah.
particular company, it was an oil and gas company. They put me in the tax department, but it was for, I think it was business and occupational tax for the state of Washington. It was one of those West Coast states.
Yeah.
And so someone in the office was doing it before. They gave it to me to tackle for the whole summer, right? So that was the only thing I had to work on, was completing this tax return. The issue was this tax return took about 3 weeks to complete. So that's why they assigned it to me to complete over the summer months. It takes 3 weeks to do this one return for them. And I was like, hey, there's no way I'm about to spend 3 weeks doing this one tax return. So immediately I got on the phone with a friend. I was like, hey, and I'm a visionary too. So that's one thing people should know about me. Like I'm great at giving people my vision and then asking them to help me build it out. And so I called a friend. He was a programmer, and I said, hey, there's this task I need to there's this tax return that I need to automate as much as possible. And this was like back in early 2000s. And I said, I need some code to help me do this. So he showed me a few code that I could use. Then I took Excel and I started automating a lot of the inputs in Excel. Right. So I built it out in Excel to automate a bunch of the inputs and to pull data from different parts of the system. So it was definitely a team effort. But at the end of the day, we were able to take something that took 3 weeks initially. By the end of my internship, it only took about 5 days to complete it. So that's where my
Wow.
process of improvement background
Yeah.
started. And then from there, like every job I've had, and it's never been jobs where they hired me to do process improvement. It was just that when they gave me a task, I was like, there's a better way to do this. And I just
Hmm.
figured out a better way to do it. And that's just how I built up my skill set in process improvement.
And you had that early experience where you were able to
Mhm.
take something that took 3 weeks and make it happen in 5 days, or
Yes.
yeah. And that's the power of technology. And
Yes.
it's
Yes.
so amazing what we can do now if we have the right process, if we have the right tech, and we have a team that's accountable. We can be so efficient and not have to work
Yes.
our butts off. You know,
Yes. And I have to do
that's the
everything
dream.
manually. Yes. I
Yeah.
think there's always a way to audit. There's a way to automate almost everything. We just got to figure out a way to do it.
Now, if you are, let me start that over. If you're interested in learning more about ways that you can automate your firm, improve your workflow, streamline, check out WorkflowCon, hosted by our sponsor, Financial Sense. It is on October 24th and 25th from 10 to 5 Eastern. It's a virtual event. Register now. I think you'll love it. If you love anything we've been talking about here on this series, you'll get a lot out of this. Um, Nicole, before we go, do you have any recommendations? Let's
Mhm.
let's say I'm a solo
Okay.
accountant. I am interested in going from one to many, starting to
Mhm.
hire. What's your what should I do? Where should I start?
Great question. All right. So I would say first, more than anything, figure out how you want to spend your day or your time. So ask yourself, what do I want to do every day? Like, what brings me joy? Like, once you figure that out, and then you can determine, okay, all those other things that you don't want to do, those things need to be delegated to someone else, right? So you need to assess your current tasks, your responsibilities, determine how much is administrative. Again, so much of our work is administrative that I would say for most people, their first hire probably needs to be an admin professional, unless they like doing the admin work. If that's the case, then they can do the admin work, but then they need to hire a technical person to do the actual client work. And then, of course, I already mentioned this several times, get your house in order so that you bring someone into a defined and formal process. Review your budget and forecast financials for the additional headcount, and then, of course, start creating a scorecard for the position you're hiring for.
Great tips, great starting point. I agree completely. Thanks everyone who attended today. Don't forget, if you need CPE, you can get that with the Earmark app. We will put this up as a course on the app within about a week, and you can go back and get CPE credit for all the other episodes in this series. Download the Earmark app on the App Store and find the Grow and Scale channel. You can search for Grow and Scale or Financial Sense, and you'll find that. You'll now get invites to future events in this series. So do join us again in the future for more insightful conversations with industry leaders. And if you want to learn more about Financial Sense, there's a poll that just popped up on your screen. If you're here with us in Zoom, hit yes, please, and submit your answer if you want to hear from Financial Sense. There are some amazing features in Financial Sense that will help you define your processes so that you can scale. I really believe that it's impossible to hire. You should not hire anyone until you've got your processes defined, because trying to train them and define your process at the same time is not scalable. It's just like, you'll go crazy. Right. So use Financial Sense, create workflow checklist templates for your team, document your processes, create one-off and recurring projects and assign them to different team members. That creates accountability, so you know who's doing what. You can monitor your team capacity. We didn't talk about that, but that's really important as you grow, is making sure you don't overload your people, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I actually have a tool for that if anyone wants to know. So we use ActiveTrack. I got that from a member from Accounting Salon. So ActiveTrack to monitor burnout, pretty much.
So yeah, don't let your team burn out. You spent so much time investing in them.
Right.
Don't burn them out, especially if that's the reason you started your own firm. Do you really want to repeat the mistakes of our forefathers and foremothers? No, you don't. So I think that's a great place to leave it. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next time. Nicole, have a great
Thank you.
fall.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone.